What's up, y'all? How you doing? Today, got some shit to talk about. I'm gonna get deep on y'all. When I was little, one of my relatives who was a homeowner at one point, like in the 80s or 90s. Yeah, probably in the 80s. So he was successful compared to us that lived in the projects. And he said, you gotta teach your kids to make money, because that's where they learn it. But what he left out of that is you gotta teach your kids to save. So I work with a lot of people. I'm around a lot of people who, by society's metrics, they're successful people. They live in really nice neighborhoods. They live in neat neighborhoods. They're free to travel anywhere in the country they want, without that setting them back in their lives. They can go to any restaurant they want without that being a blip on their savings. And sometimes we talk about our kids, and by and large, we experience a lot of the same parenting problems. So this kid's motivated, this one isn't. This kid doesn't do as well around other kids. And not in that they thug, but in that they're more introverted. You know, these are the kids of white collar job having folks. And I'd say, you know, all our kids are good kids. But the difference I notice is that, you know, I tell my kids, you guys are going to college, and that's that. Because someone also told me, I think it was a psychologist, who said, you know, these kids, they're told from an early age that they're going to college, and they don't see it any differently than how they see they have to go to high school and junior high school. And I've had homies who maybe didn't see it that way. They just quit going to school in junior high, kicked it all day, and, you know, maybe some other ones dropped off in high school. You know, it's different. And that's what the point of this video is. And so you know, I say that to my kids. And I have a system where, you know, I pay them for their grades, for, you know, if they want to write a book report for me, not for school, but for me, I'll pay them for it. And then chores they have to do. You know, they might have to pick up dog poop. They take turns. And they're not going to get paid for that, because that's part of you living here. So I'm trying to teach them to work with their minds. And they get good grades. And that's pretty much the extent of it, which is already a lot more than I had given to me. But I look at these other folks, and they're actually helping their kids with their homework. And my kids are where they should be, you know, in an algebra class. Those other kids are, you know, in AP calculus. And when, I talk to college about my kids, I'm like, hey, think about where you want to go, and then we'll look into it. Whereas these parents have already looked into all these different schools, what the specialty programs are. They're going on field trips with them. It's a lot more in depth. And my kids, I'm sure they're going to go, but I see that these other kids, or should I say parents, emphasize education to levels I've never seen in my community. When like people, homies, first started going to college, that I recall, it was like in the 90s. And I know Rasa's been in colleges and universities from the 60s and were part of movements, but that people that I knew, where I knew someone that went to college, it was always administration of justice or social justice. It was social science, and that's what I did. So I'm not like on this high thing looking down. I'm like right here looking across and saying, this is what we did. We took the classes that were fun, and it was enough just to go to college. Whereas over here, it's not enough just to go to college. It's about what you're going to learn and where you're going to get the best level of education. Now, I say all this with the understanding that I think it was Albert Einstein who said, an educated man does not equal a learned man. Meaning, I've known people who are highly educated, and when they run into something they haven't been educated on, they might freeze up. They might not know what to do because they haven't been taught how to do that. And I'm digressing right here for a second because I just gave this lecture yesterday. There's 3 kinds of minds. The inferior, the average, and the superior. The inferior mind, you can't teach it anything. They're just, you can't make them see. The average mind, you can make them see. You can help them understand. And then the superior mind, it just knows on its own. It can still learn things, but it knows. You don't have to teach it. It can figure things out. And if you add an education to any one of the first 2, or the second 2, not the inferior one, you can you can have more assurance of getting closer to your potential. And so, going back to the education, when I hear them talk, they're very specific about schools and the kind of programs they have. And I've only gone to like a community college, so I don't know the university life. And when I talk to some like, professional folks, it's like, hey, I when I left the nest. I didn't come back, and like that's something different to me, because I couldn't imagine my kids leaving and then that's it. They're out in the world, and even as successful as they could be, I would be happy for them, but for them to not like be part of my life all the time, that would be kind of a trip. Even if they were happy, and that might be the ideal, is that they fly the nest and see the world in bigger and better ways than you were able to. But that would be hard. So anyways, the other part of like some of the conversations I was having was around investing. And pretty much everybody was like, yeah, when I invested initially, it was like in like general stocks, and I don't know about stocks out of laziness. Um, like I have to report all kinds of everything that would be a conflict of interest. And stocks, I'd have to report stocks, so I just don't bother with them. But everybody who has said that pretty much they quadrupled their money from the start, and that because it's cyclical, it it just pays off if you're patient over a long time with a consistent strategy. And their strategy was when their stocks go up and are doing good, they move that money to their stocks that are not doing good, because those are going to come back up and the other ones are going to drop. And then when those other ones go up, they put the money into the ones that dropped, and then they go back up, and it just keeps spinning, and it grows a little bit at a time. And everybody was on the same tip. And then they looked at me, and I was like, man, my friggin' retirement plan, besides what gets taken out of my paycheck, um, so that I can retire, which I can retire any day if I want. Um, but outside of that, and this is everybody's talking about extra stuff. I'm like, man, mine is a lowrider. You know, that's the hood retirement plan. And that's because nobody taught me that. And I'm cool. I'm happy with my life. But I do think back to when I was a little kid and I was told, man, it's on the parent. You got to teach your kids how to make money. And they should have added save money. Because if you make it and you don't know how to save it or invest it, even better, you're just going to run through it. You know, you have a cool life, but you'll run through it. And so you got to teach your kids that. And if you don't know it, then you got to learn it so you can teach it to them, man. That's how you're going to break the cycle. That's, I think, again, like, as far as parenting, we seem to be fairly consistent in everything. And again, my kids are great kids. But it seems like their kids might have more options when it comes to schools. You know, if you have your pick of schools, you kind of can swing the world by the tail, and that starts early. You know, you do need those AP courses to get into like an MIT or a Stanford or a school that pretty much guarantees you a middle class life, if not upper middle class life, or a satisfying life where, you know, maybe you do research or something in fields that allow you to feel like your work has purpose, like you know what you're doing, and you have the freedom to find solutions and be creative. You know, that's an ideal situation. And I think, you know, a lot of our families, you know, Mexican families, Raza families, you know, there's love in the home and discipline and everything. But I think that part of what makes that difference is that heavy emphasis on education. So that's the video today. That's what I kind of saw as a difference between myself and people who are handing down generational wealth, as well as the skills to maintain it, and if not, grow it. You know, because giving your kids stuff, if they don't know, you didn't teach them how to manage it or save it, you know, they'll squander it, and it was all for nothing. And I've seen that as well, where people who like spent a lifetime accomplishing and building huge um, empires, if you will, and their kids were not them, and it got squandered within one generation. It was gone. It didn't even make it to the grandkids. It just got squandered like right there. So, so yeah, you got to teach your kids how to earn a living and how to save, and that's how you start to break the cycle. It's not just about making money, you know. So, have a good one. Enjoy your Sunday tomorrow.